In our next triptych of adventures, two shorts and a long again. We've got a short episode with Aeolus, another one with the Lystragonians, and then a longer one with Circe. With Aeolus, we have a pretty strange environment. We run across a foreign king that has somehow control of all the winds, and he's got them all stuffed into a single bag. How did that happen? And then also, reading closely, looking at the details of the episode, Aeolus's sons and daughters marry one another. That's not quite normal. The lines that get drawn around incest taboos are sometimes fungible from society to society, but in most of them, brother and sister marriage counts as prohibited. And in Aeolus, that's, or in Homer's time, that's surely the case. So representing Aeolus this way represents things as being a bit strange. Again, Odysseus' men's curiosity leads to a problem. They can't wait to see what's inside that bag, leads them to get blown back to Aeolus, who says, "My goodness, you must be really cursed. I don't want you here anymore," and sends them off on their way. Then they get to the Lystragonians, where we have some bloody battle, and again we get this introduction to the creature, the monster that eats human beings. The Lystragonians eat some of Odysseus' men. An awful thing. The revulsion of that carries forward through these episodes. Moving on to our next larger piece of what our story is all about, in the episode involving Circe, we get an even more full meditation on some of these themes. The episode begins in the same kind of way with some variations. There's a wash-up on an unknown shore. A search party goes off to see what's happening there. Odysseus himself stays behind. We get tales of strange, awful things happening. Odysseus then sets out to make sure that he can set things right there in the hut in Circe's village, and things are quite wrong there in profound ways. The most powerful piece of this episode is that Odysseus' men get turned into pigs. And that's terrible. The turning of a human being into a pig is a kind of shape-shifting that makes us, just feel awful that someone should have their humanity taken away from them. But I think there's even a more full piece of what is awful about this scene, in that it's not just that men are turned into animals, it's that men are turned into animals that are in the standard repertoire of food. Pigs are raised domestically in order for one thing, just for one thing, in order to be eaten. And now Odysseus' men are taking that role of becoming these kind of edible parts of the normal food chain, which is really adds to the horrific nature of this. Now, in the Circe episode, we see Odysseus' men wondering to themselves, how is it that a woman can turn a man into a swine? It could be that there's a kind of psychological reading that's possible here. It may be that what is really the case is that men who made up this myth, Homer's gender is male, as such as we know, men who made up this myth and who like to hear it from each other may well fear that women have the power to turn men into some other kind of creature, a beguiling magical power. Circe's not the first female gendered character that we've seen that has a witching power to her and a power to unman, in this case literally, the men that approach her. This is mixed up also with the erotic dimension to Circe. Remember that in the end, after Odysseus wins her over, she carries forward with an erotic relationship with Odysseus that lasts fully over a year. So this kind of cluster of ideas of dangerous women that have magical powers, that can do shape-shifting with men, and that have erotic an erotic lock on the male creatures, is something that's a standard piece of ancient myth. We've already seen two characters like this. Odysseus's way of overcoming Circe's power, pretty straightforward. He pulls his sword on her, sure, but he also, remember, it's not just his manly heroic prowess that's coming through here. He has this special magical potion that he gets from Hermes on his way to Circe's hut. And when he gets that magical potion, he now has a power to resist her magic. so she can mix up her herbs as she does in this beautiful scene from Greek pottery, mix up her herbs, hand it off to the other men, but the other men get turned into pigs. Odysseus himself is now, because of his counter magic, is impervious to her spells. Because of this, now he can rush at her with her sword. When he does, she falls for him. It seems kind of weakly characterized, but yeah, that seems to be what Circe wanted all along, was just for Odysseus to love her. So when he does, she's wonderfully overjoyed at being overpowered, and then she has this long tryst, this long relationship with him. Notice in this case, this thing goes on for nearly a year, and Odysseus's men have to talk Odysseus out of this one. He's just kind of going along day by day, enjoying this relationship, and they say, now come on, Odysseus, it's time to go. They push and get him ready to move on to the next step. Now, when they do, Odysseus then says, we're going to leave. She says, well, you know, there's some stuff you need to know. Circe is now going to fill him in with a special kind of secret knowledge. She is going to give him clues that he needs to use in order to find his way home. There's a problem with his journey home that Odysseus is ignorant of. He's going to need to find, she says, the smartest man around, Tiresias. There's one unfortunate thing: Tiresias just happens to be dead. So in order to talk to Tiresias, Odysseus is going to have to make his way to the underworld. In order to do that, she gives him the basic formula that he needs, the place to go, how to lay out a trench and lay out an attractive kind of bait for the shades to come out of the underworld, and then he can interview them, find his way to Tiresias, and get the information he needs to make his way home. Now, on this, before they leave the island of Circe, there is this one little loose end that doesn't quite get tied up. Remember, there's one of the men in Odysseus' crew, Elpenor, is drinking too much up on the roof, falls off the roof and dies. Dies completely alone. No one realizes what's happened. They're off on their next adventure, and they don't even know he's dead. Poor Elpenor. He's going to be someone who helps us tie the next couple of books together. So keep an eye on his story.